Welcome to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. Happy Friday. I'm going to go ahead and remind you guys, well, those of you who are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit, you can gently tap the like button. You don't have to smash it. I mean, we do like a good smashing every once in a while, but just a gentle tap is totally fine. We love that too. Make sure to comment as well. It helps us with the algorithm. And of course, if you haven't gone on to wherever you get your audio podcasts, make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review the show. You may also see your review read on the program. So, if I had blood pressure medication, I would take it right now. So if you have high blood pressure problems, make sure that you've taken your blood pressure medicine for this one. Okay. So former disgraced CNN anchor turned News Nation host, Chris Cuomo, who you may recall was one of the biggest frauds, liars, and propaganda pushers during the COVID scamdemic, was recently on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. And he had this to say about the I word. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we actually talk about that now? Because I remember a time not too long ago where you were shunned from society. You were blacklisted. You were blackballed on social media. You were removed if you said the actual word. So are we good? Are we in the clear? Is it fine now? Will I get a strike on YouTube? Let's see. We'll find out. He had this to say about Ivermectin.
I'll tell you something else that's going to get you a lot of hits. I am taking a, what do they call it? Like a regular dose, whatever. They're trying to build up of Ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
Sure couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about Ivermectin.
Really?
The real question is why? Everyone's going to say Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right.
Okay,
but
all right, stop. We were given bad information. Really? Because I seem to recall receiving all the information that I needed when I went out looking for it, and I wasn't trying to peddle government propaganda. So he keeps using the term, we were given bad information. No, you were the one giving the bad information, bro. It was you. Keep going.
But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that Ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID and they weren't saying anything. Not that they were hiding anything, but
not that they were
it's
hiding
cheap. It's not owned by anybody.
No
and
kidding.
It's used as an antimicrobial, antiviral, and all of these different ways. It has been for a long time.
For malaria for over almost 20 years.
Yeah. So, and my doctor, who is now my doctor, was using it during COVID on her family and on patients. And it was working for them.
No way.
They were wrong to play scared on that. Didn't know that at the time. Know it now. Admit it now. Reporting on it now.
Didn't know it at the time. Hold on a second. I love his use of we. We didn't know. We didn't know. We were given wrong information. We didn't know. Didn't know it at the time. Do now. Really? We had no idea. See, you don't get to rewrite history, Chris, because we right here in this building did know. We did tell you. We did have doctors explaining that. And you, Chris Cuomo, called them frauds and quacks and smiled and laughed whenever they had their licenses taken from them for telling the truth. And just as a reminder how bad this clown was, every night for 2 years, I sat on my old set right over there and had to refute all of the lies that he was spewing on CNN for 2 years. Here was one of those moments. Here was Chris back in 2021 on this very same drug, this miracle drug, this antimicrobial. Did you know they use it for malaria? No shit. Here's Chris Cuomo back in 2021.
People who are injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to.
Oh, my God.
What person?
Oh,
You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer. Really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to be shamed.
Yeah.
They need to be called out and shamed, brother.
Okay, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, they need to be shamed, brother. A dewormer? Oh, really? Oh, there are people telling Americans to take a dewormer. Yeah, doctors. The same ones you were shaming out of existence and insulting and deplatforming were right the whole time. And we had the information that they were right the whole time. You just wouldn't take it to air. That ivermectin wasn't just a horse dewormer for veterinarian use only, like you guys spewed years and years. We knew that then. We knew then that ivermectin was an antimicrobial that was used for malaria, that it was safe and cheap and effective. Hell, the scientists that discovered it won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2015. COVID didn't happen till 2020. We already knew it. But now these little demons who share responsibility for millions of people dying because they couldn't get early treatment. They weren't allowed to get ivermectin. This was literally banned in some states. It was the I word. You're not allowed to say it. Pharmacies wouldn't fill it. These people were sent home to die. All these little demons who were responsible for the lies want to come out of the woodwork and casually say, gosh, who were those awful people peddling lies and misinformation? They should really feel bad about that because they were wrong. It was you. You did it. And by the way, it's not just Chris Cuomo, okay? It's also Leana Wen. Remember her? She's the former Baltimore health commissioner. Also, CNN medical expert. Well, she has expert in her title, so we must have to listen to her. She must know what she's talking about. So she actually went on recently with Chris's brother, Andrew. We got to keep it all in the family, okay? Remember, Andrew Cuomo, the grandma killer during COVID? So here's what Dr. Leana Wen had to say to grandma killer Cuomo about this debate on masks and vaccines now.
And I actually think this is one where the public health and scientific community has a lot to blame. Because at some point, people got the message that if you care about public health at all, or your fellow citizens, you have to be masking. You have to believe in masks and vaccines. And if you are not doing these things or are even questioning whether we should have mandates, then you are somehow anti-science or anti-public health. There were topics that we now know are actually, they're not controversial.
Hold on. I don't want something to be lost on you. At the beginning of this, she says, well, the public health and scientific and medical community, honey, that was you. That was you telling people that they weren't allowed to talk about whether or not masks work and whether or not a vaccine works. That was you. Own it. You are the medical community. I mean, after all, you're CNN medical expert. That was you, okay? So let's be clear. Own it. If it was you, just say it. You don't have to call it the community. That was you, babe. Keep going.
But they're more debatable, as in we should have a robust scientific conversation around them. For example, natural immunity, which actually is a thing. But for a long time, it was taboo to bring it up for fear that you might be called an anti-vaxxer. And so I think that public trust has been eroded, yes by people who are perpetuating misinformation and disinformation. But I think that the people in the scientific community who did not do a very good job of separating fact from opinion helped to erode that trust.
That was you. It was you. You did it. The call is coming from inside the house, okay? You are the baddie. I love the audacity of these people. Well, if only the medical community hadn't have not let people make this debate, they just eroded public trust. It was you. Well, it turns out natural immunity is a real thing. Wow, you mean to tell me the CNN medical expert who was going on TV in 2021 telling everyone there was no such thing as natural immunity, which is something that, obviously anyone who knows anything Obviously, common sense tells you we have known about natural immunity for a very long time, but now all of a sudden, natural immunity doesn't exist anymore. Okay? Well, it turns out there is natural immunity. We know that now. No, we knew it all along. And in fact, I believe you also did, but you profited off of your lies that you peddled. Okay? So I want to play you Leanna Wen, way back when, several years ago during COVID, talking to one of the Cuomo bros again about all of these pesky anti-vaxxers that now all of a sudden are allowed to be part of the debate. Here's what she said back then.
Clear to them that the vaccine is the ticket back to pre-pandemic life. And the window to do that is really narrowing. We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated. That you have the option to not get vaccinated if you want, but then you can't go out in public.
I don't think it goes far enough. I think this is what's needed in the middle of a pandemic. And in fact, I think the Biden administration, if anything, could have gone even further. The honor code was never going to work. That when vaccinated and unvaccinated people are mixing, unless there is proof of vaccination, everybody should still be wearing masks. And so I actually support what the CDC is now doing, which is going back to this indoor mask requirement, because frankly, we know that we can't trust.
Stop. This woman just said the Biden administration didn't go far enough. What the Biden administration did was unforgivable, because what they did was force anyone who was a government employee to get an experimental vaccine. And they used their government body to pressure private companies into doing the same. Okay? So someone who says the Biden administration didn't go far enough, like how much further should he have gone? How much should we have been jailed for saying I don't want to wear a mask? I'm not going to take your stupid vaccine. Should I have been publicly executed? Just to make an example out of me so everyone else complies? Like, how much farther did you want this fascist to go? I'm just wondering. Keep going.
To the unvaccinated, that they have been walking around without masks. And in fact, that's what led to the surge that we're seeing.
How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have. Because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
Oh, here are all these freedoms that you have. You just have to do one thing for me. This bitch who literally advocated taking your freedoms away, unless you submitted to an experimental jab, literally wanted you exiled from society because you wouldn't inject mRNA into your body or suffocate yourself wearing a face diaper. That's the person who's going to tell me now we can have the debate on whether or not that stuff worked. No. And by the way, not lost on me that how beautifully rich it is that she's saying this with a straight face to the man who sent old people to their deaths in nursing homes. He killed off practically the entirety of New York's nursing homes when he had the data showing that if you sent these people back to be around the most vulnerable population we knew at the time were the elderly. We knew COVID was killing them at extraordinary rates. We knew that more people would die if you sent a COVID-infected patient into a bunch of elderly people's homes, and he did it anyway. He murdered those people, and he wants to sit there with a straight face. Yeah, now we can have the debate. No. I will never allow people to forget who it was that was lying and deceiving the American public while people died. They died. And it wasn't because I wasn't wearing a mask. It was because you were telling them they couldn't receive early treatment and they couldn't go to the hospital until it was already too late. And you guys were the ones who were pushing World War II propaganda and profiting off of it while the rest of us were called anti-science assholes. Now, look, I have resigned myself to the fact that these people these demons won't ever be held accountable like they should. They won't go to prison like they should. They won't face the gallows like I believe they should. But I will, at the very least, remind everyone who these people are. Hell is not a harsh enough consequence for all of them, as far as I'm concerned. These people, they just want to rewrite history. We cannot let them do it. All right, we've got more to come. Hopefully that starts with, you know what? I need some Flying Aces spirits right now because I'm told that they have amazing liquor, spirits, and I could really use some after watching all of those clips. So Flying Aces Spirits, since 2007, they're working with Folds of Honor right now. And since 2007, Folds of Honor has provided life-changing scholarships to the spouses and children of America's fallen or disabled in combat. And in 2023, this was extended to include the families of fallen first responders. So they've awarded 51,000 scholarships, more than $200 million so far. And what Flying Aces Spirits is doing is they have aligned with Folds of Honor to ensure that the children of our American heroes receive the education that they deserve. So they are helping sponsor 4 scholarships awarded quarterly this year, and they are asking for you to donate if you can. Now, here's the great part, okay? You can actually go to flyingacespirits.com and scan the QR code on the screen. You can do that, and you can donate. But also, you can just purchase liquor, okay? When you purchase a bottle of Flying Ace, you will also be donating to Folds of Honor. So make sure to use the promo code Unfiltered and get free shipping on every order. That is flyingacespirits.com, promo code Unfiltered. Well, now that I've gotten that off my chest, welcome to the program, BlazeTV contributor Matthew Marsden, an actor and producer extraordinaire, along with BlazeTV contributor John Doyle, host of Heck Off Commie. It's been a while, John.
Yeah.
I worried for a second that you were avoiding me.
No, it's just, your content kind of fell off a little bit. It wasn't as interesting to me. And then yesterday I thought your performance was so good. I was like, okay, I want to hitch my car to that.
Yeah, really. So what was it yesterday that you loved so much? Do tell.
It'd be tough to reduce it to one. And
yeah,
a lot of people,
so
I think
moments.
they try to do that. I think it discredits everything else. It's like, could there be a ceiling and a peak? Yes. But there's just so much that was said yesterday, and I think that everyone should go back and watch if they.
John was just the kid who didn't read the book, giving a book report in class.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, you little shit. So this is fascinating development with what's going on with Israel, because we were just talking about, Matt, that Joe Biden had basically threatened to withhold aid to Israel. That, by the way, I want to make one thing clear. I disagree with the package that we are sending to Israel, but I'm trying to present the facts as they are. So Congress had already approved this. They had already voted on it. And Joe Biden actually had already signed the bill. So this was already a done deal. And he decided, you know what, Israel, Netanyahu, if you continue your ground game, if you continue your strike, we are going to withhold the rest of this aid. And so now, 2 different developments. One is that the White House is kind of walking that back, and John Kirby's like, actually, we are sending them what they need. Weapon shipments are still going to Israel. They're still getting the vast majority of everything they need to defend themselves. Don't listen to our president. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And so they're cleaning that up. But another thing that every American should be incensed about is that now it's important enough for the House to draft impeachment articles on Biden. Not because he hasn't done jack shit at our border and he's allowed, millions and millions of illegals to come through, some of which will commit an act of terror someday. It's only a matter of time. Not because of any of the other things that he's doing, but because he isn't sending aid to another country. I can't think of a more GOP thing than, hey, guy, you completely neglected your own citizens, but because you won't send that aid to help us fund that war, we're going to impeach you now. Like, I can't think of anything more boomer GOP than that.
It's peak GOP.
It really is.
It's totally peak GOP. And yeah, I mean, originally it was because he said, hey, you know, you guys, if you guys go into Rafah, then we will not send you weapons. And Netanyahu had already said, listen, we're going into, he's not going to care.
Right.
He's just going to do what's best for his country, which is what he should be doing, which is what Joe Biden should be doing, which means he shouldn't be sending any money to any other country apart from this one. That's it. I don't care. Look, I'm all for what Israel's doing. They've got to defend themselves, but they don't need our money. They just don't. I'm sorry. It's, you know who needs our money? American citizens need our money. That's what they need. And we don't have any money because we're printing it anyway.
Right.
It's the whole thing is ridiculous. The GOP is ineffective. They are a joke. And yeah, I mean, I'm an American citizen. I'm like, they care about other people, everybody else in the world apart from us.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And it is entertaining, too, to see the sort of fissures form in the leftist coalition where you have a lot of Jewish people who have always voted Democrat, other than like Orthodox Jews. I think a lot of their donors are like secular Jews. But then you've got all of these like new American types who have immigrated into the country in just the last 15 years or so. And they have a very strong ethnic grudge against Israel. And a lot of like the college activists, too, are against Israel. But if you look at like why that is in the polling, it's because they believe that Israel is just an extension of colonialism and white supremacy. So there's like a constant vector that's pointing against white people, and Israel is sort of catching strays from that because they think that Israel is just an extension of like Western civilization or white supremacy or things of that nature. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we give these people, I think, $4 billion a year explicitly, but then there's also tens of billions of dollars given to neighboring countries, basically as buy-offs saying, hey, take it easy on Israel, and let alone, the 80 billion or whatever we've given to Ukraine. It's like, Trump couldn't get $4 billion for a border wall. I mean, that was, that's way too much. It was $4 billion. I mean, that's less than what we give to people who are here. I think we spend like $40 billion or something a year just on like welfare payments, just to American citizens, maybe. Actually, it's probably like 10 times that amount, actually, plus to like foreign aid and everything. And it's like, why couldn't even if just 1% of that were allocated towards the southern border, maybe increasing the budget of the Department of Homeland Security, like you would notice within a presidential administration, this country getting measurably better. But for some reason, that just can't happen. And it's because they benefit both in terms of expanding their wealth and their power when the country is eroded from the bottom up and you have this sort of importing of a permanent underclass of people who can be used to just like suck on the teat of the American taxpayer.
Right. Yeah. I just, and look, I don't want it to be lost on anyone that I understand if we can get Biden impeached, I'm not here to complain, right? Well, actually, I don't know. Kamala Harris might be worse, but we're looking at a couple months before hopefully daddy's back in the White House. But it's a joke. It's a joke, okay?
You're joking.
Well, John's not joking when he says it. Who, by the way, those of you listening on audio podcast, John is wearing a giant Make America Great Again.
This one's great because the red one, it really is sort of like the writing on the wall where in 2016, 2020, you had the red one and it was like, hey, Make America Great Again, right? Right? This is like the black flag has been raised. Like you are going to Guantanamo Bay. We are taking no prisoners. We are going to establish the American Truth and Reconciliation Council and we are going to hold the traitors accountable.
Yes, all of them, including Leanna Wen and Chris Cuomo. Well, all the Cuomos. But so I'm not going to complain if they want to actually move forward with impeaching someone who I think should have been impeached a long time ago. But the reason that they're obviously withholding aid to Israel is terrible, but they're like, well, remember Donald Trump, they impeached Donald Trump for threatening to withhold aid unless, Ukraine worked with him. And I'm just like, oh, that's what you're pretending to use? We all know what this is about. We all know that it's about your allegiance to Israel, because if you were concerned with the double standards, you would have done it a long freaking time ago. Period.
What's interesting, too, is actually, in my experience watching right-wing media, the only person I've seen speak so indignantly about issues pertaining to America in a capacity where it could be compared to the way that these people speak about issues pertaining to Israel is actually you. Like when you go off on your Latina moments or whatever, and you're going on to these people. That's like the way that a lot of these people speak about Israel. I saw there was a video of like Ted Cruz and all these other congressmen. They were going one by one, just talking about how terrible this is. And I know that they'll have like Senate committee hearings or whatever where they'll like have their viral moment owning somebody. But in terms of like what actually seems to make their blood boil, it has nothing to do with the well-being or sovereignty of America.
Yeah, I want to play, on that note, I want to play a CNN contributor, Scott Jennings, who is basically parroting these talking points that you hear from these GOP bros about, well, Joe Biden is being really hypocritical here because he's doing the same thing that they impeached Donald Trump of. And just listen to this exchange. Watch.
Republicans in Congress are going to be livid about this issue
because
right here.
They think they have a good issue.
Well,
Scott,
no.
I get it. I think they think that he's the president of the United States. They're just politicians trying to take advantage of a situation.
Well, no, I think they support our ally, and maybe he doesn't. They're going to recall a time when we impeached the president of the United States for withholding military aid authorized by Congress from Ukraine. $400 million. That was the basis of the impeachment. This is congressionally authorized military aid to our ally, and he is withholding it for political reasons.
Wait 1 second. I'm sorry, it's your show.
Go.
The basis of that impeachment was that the president of the United States called the president of Ukraine, and he said, I want you to do me a favor and open an investigation on the person who I think may be my opponent in the next election. That was the basis
and
of
he
the
wants
impeachment.
Israel to stand down on Rafah because his base is mad at him. It's a political reason.
Scott, the analogy just doesn't help.
Yeah. So obviously they are, I think, kind of going to John's point, there's a lot of infighting here because these are all Democrats. And you heard that, what's his name? Scott Jennings. You heard Scott Jennings, who was like, nope. They stand with our ally and he doesn't. I mean, he's pissed.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very difficult at this point not to get very, very, very angry. I try and just take a step back and be calm about it because, they are more concerned about another country than they are this country. They should all be fired. They should all go. And the American people should be absolutely furious with them. And by the way, to your point about Joe Biden, I don't think he should be impeached. I don't.
Really?
Because, and I'll tell you why. Because it's smoke and mirrors. What are you going to do anyway? It gives them something else to talk about. Oh, they're coming after Joe. They're coming up. No, just let him carry on. Like let him self-destruct. He's hopefully, the main man's going to be back in November anyway. Go after him afterwards because you can quite clearly see that they can do that to a former president after. Just wait. Let Biden run. Who cares? He's a disaster. And the thing that drives me bonkers, probably more than anything, he said, the timing of it.
Yeah.
Why didn't they do it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? What about all the other stuff?
Well, because he didn't refuse to refuse to give Israel aid.
Oh.
Nothing else was bad enough.
Oh.
Nothing else rose to the level.
Classified documents in the Corvette, that didn't. Penn State, that didn't matter.
Well, it does when you're Donald Trump and you get indicted for it.
This is what I'm saying. The GOP, oh my good grief. They all need, well, not all of them. There's a couple of people out there that are fighting, but the rest of them should go, right? And if you are not indignant at this point, if you are not furious, I don't know what is it. They're transing our kids. They're trying to lock us down and force us to have vaccinations that we didn't want. Now they're doing, the whole thing, sending money to other countries when we can't, block the border wall. By the way, nobody talks about the fact that we have, even though the useless, stupid Democrats keep pushing the climate change agenda, we do not have a network, a grid that can sustain it. If we got attacked, if we had any kind of EMP, we've got no way of protecting it. We've got an archaic energy system that we're not even protecting. And they wanted $7 billion for that. It's, no, we can't do that. We can't protect our infrastructure. The whole thing is absurd. We are honestly at this point a joke. They all need to go. Trump needs to come in and he needs to start firing people. You're fired, you're fired, you're fired. That's what he needs to do.
I agree. Yes. Retweet. That is true. That was very good. Yeah.
John's just exclamation point.
Well, because he was going off and I was like, okay, maybe I can talk about it. And then he hit it. So I got nothing. Yes.
Well, thank you, Matt.
He's classically trained. Look at the guy.
I'm just saying.
So let's go ahead and take a quick break. And then when we get back, let's talk RFK's he's been in the headlines a lot. And for I don't think none of them are good reasons, okay? I want to remind all of you people who are like, I'm broken, I can't vote for Trump, I think RFK is my guy. Is he? We'll get into that. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. So Relief Factor is there for those of you who live in constant pain and you think that that's just life now. It doesn't have to be that way. Try Relief Factor. It's an all-natural anti-inflammatory, and it really works. It was developed by doctors who were tired of having to, write prescriptions, and people take this pain med and it makes them loopy. And if it doesn't make them loopy, it doesn't work. Okay. Try Relief Factor. It targets the inflammation in your body, which oftentimes that is the root cause of your pain. So you're not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. You are actually addressing it at its root. Try the 3-week quick start. Okay. Go to the website. It's relieffactor.com. It's $19.95 and they have a feel better or your money back guarantee. So you've got nothing to lose except your pain. Go to relieffactor.com. That is relieffactor.com. So RFK Jr., who again, I know that there are some conservatives who are never Trumpers who are like, well, I can't vote for Joe Biden, so I think I'm going to vote for RFK. I think he's my guy. And these people are constantly hitting on Donald Trump for his inconsistencies with the pro-life agenda, which I agree he has said some things that I don't love. However, he also, with his record, is the most pro-life president of our lifetime. He appointed Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe versus Wade. So there's Donald Trump talking, and sometimes he says things that he doesn't mean or says, he has verbal diarrhea. Okay, so there's Donald Trump talking offhand, or there's Donald Trump in office creating policy or nominating Supreme Court justices who are going to overturn bad legislation. We need to separate those two Donald Trumps, all right? So these same people who talk about Donald Trump's pro-life inconsistencies are talking about voting for RFK Jr. Well, RFK Jr. has just recently said with Sage Steele that women should be allowed to have abortion even if it's full term. His words, not mine. Watch.
But so in other words, keeping it as is with Roe versus Wade having been overturned and leaving it up to the states to determine if and when a woman can have an abortion?
No, I wouldn't leave it to the states.
You wouldn't, right?
No, I would.
You would say completely. It's up to the woman.
My belief is we should leave it to the woman. We shouldn't have government involved,
even if it's full term.
Even if it's full term.
Okay.
He said it, not me. Even if it's full term, a woman has a right to choose. She has medical autonomy of her body. Well, I mean, there's just one small problem. It's not her body. It's the baby's, who is, of course, a living, breathing human. And even if it's full term, well, if it's full term, it could survive on its own. You just deliver the baby and you deliver it alive instead of dead. That's how this process works. So he is, there's no, I mean, because he said that, we don't even need to have the argument of when is life, when does it begin? Well, at 16 weeks, is it really? Well, but the heart's not beating. Well, it's not fully formed. Even if it's full term, he is clearly advocating for murder of babies. I don't see any other way to describe that. Do I have that off somehow?
If people are angry about Kristi Noem's shooting of the dog,
right?
I don't know what to say about this. I mean, it's over for him, in my opinion. I mean, that's just a horrendous position to take. Just a horrendous position to take.
I certainly haven't heard Donald Trump uttering words anywhere remotely close to that.
The anti-abortion thing with Trump is one of the most illiterate things that I've seen recently from people who claim to be pro-life. And the reason behind it, I mean, this was the same play. You have to understand, as good as the government and intelligence agencies are at like running, psyops or propaganda campaigns, the NGOs and the activists and the lobbyists, that's like their bread and butter. And they ran this play in 2015. They ran it now and probably even maybe a little in 2020. But it's this idea that if you can alienate evangelical voters who are one of Trump's most reliable demographic, well, then you can kneecap his campaign and hurt his chances in the election. And so these people are networked with all of the pro-life influencers, not all of them. There are a lot of them who are doing good work, but you have to understand when you see rhetoric with these people coming out at Donald Trump saying that, he's actually not pro-life and he is, crisscross on his position with abortion, that is all meant to create a circumstance where Trump's campaign can either fail or be usurped, because the whole crown jewel of pro-life activism for 50 years was we have to overturn Roe v. Wade, and then we have to give it back to the states. That was their North Star. Trump facilitated the conditions for that to happen. Nobody else could have done it. I'm sorry, but Ted Cruz would not have won in 2016. The type of turnout that Trump got in the Rust Belt, that would not have happened for Senator Ted Cruz. It was only Donald Trump, and only Donald Trump could have appointed those justices like he said he would. Every other president, by the way, when they're running for president, they never said the words, I am going to appoint pro-life justices who will overturn Roe v. Wade. They say, well, I'm going to appoint justices who are originalist or who are textualists, unbiased or whatever. Trump, and he probably didn't do this purposefully. He probably did it because he sometimes doesn't. He's just like, straight up, I'm appointing them and they're overturning Roe v. Wade. And then he actually did it. So the thing is, and this is like very controversial to say on our side because obviously we're pro-life, but it is a form of right-wing virtue signaling. I'm sorry, to get up on stage in front of a crowd and you make $1 million a year by giving speeches saying that killing babies is wrong. So true. What now? Do you want to stop that from happening, or do you want to live a cushy lifestyle? I mean, it's good work if you can get it. You get to black cars, cocktail parties, rub shoulders, but you're actually not on net saving lives. What saves lives, unfortunately, is winning elections. I wish we could snap our fingers and make it stop, but you have to win elections. That's the way the system works. And you don't win elections by getting up there and telling people, because unfortunately, American culture, as I'm sure we all know, is not very pro-life. It's very just depraved and degenerated. And so you kind of do have to play ball a little bit. I mean, Trump didn't make abortion the center of his campaign. He was focused on nationalist policies, trade policy, immigration policy, foreign policy. And then he had that as an accessory of his campaign to sort of, throw the evangelicals what they need. And then he promises made, promises kept. He actually did it. But if you come out there when you're running for a national election and start talking about a federal abortion ban, well, now you're not going to win an election. And then the Democrats are going to get in and they're going to amnesty however many tens of millions of people are here. And then Republicans are never going to win an election again. So then what's going to happen to the kids then? I mean, you're so pro-life. What happens then? And then it just keeps going. So
well, you're absolutely right. And I think what I would like for people to remember is Donald Trump's recent remarks on abortion just align with what the Supreme Court said, right? Like, that's it. So if you want to hit him on it, okay, I guess hit the Supreme Court on the same thing, because he's just reiterating what the Supreme Court said, which is that it should be up to the states to choose. So let's pick one, because it was a win when to John's point, it was a huge win when the Supreme Court said it. And now the same guy who brought us that win says the same thing that the Supreme Court is saying. And everyone's like, I can't believe how anti-life he is. And it's like, I just don't agree with the criticism. I think that it was unfortunate what he said, but I don't agree that like somehow he is not pro-life.
Adding to that, I think we have 26 or 27 Republican governors right now. Why are these activists not putting pressures on these Republican governors who all have, for the most part, significant majorities in both chambers of state Congress? Because that's how you could act. I mean, the ball's in your court. Pass the ban. Why not do it? They want to put all of that against Trump. Well, it's his fault. He won't pass a federal ban or whatever. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? You asked for it. He gave it to you. So do it. Do your job. Right. But they don't want to, because a lot of these influencers and these activists are never Trumpers who happen to be pro-life. And they're trying to use that platform to kneecap his campaign, which is expected by all metrics to succeed come November.
Yeah. Also on RFK, you can't vote for a guy who's had a brain worm, which apparently he had. He said doctors found a dead worm in his brain after he was experiencing severe memory loss and mental fogginess. And so they thought that he had a brain tumor. And then they were like, no, actually, it's just a dead parasite in your brain. That's wild.
It gives me the ick. Yeah.
Very much the ick. So apparently he's fine now. And they said that they thought that it was a pork tapeworm larva, which I didn't know existed or that you could get it, and now I'm terrified. That's all. That's all I have to say about it.
Well, it's good if Joe Biden, I mean, because he would have he'd be like moving into a massive penthouse apartment because there's nothing in his head. There's nothing in his head.
Very open floor plan.
He'd be like that. This is an open floor. Can I just say this, Sarah, as well?
Yeah.
Are people ever going to figure out that Trump negotiates as well? It's the way he does things. He's not a regular politician. So he'll say like, little rocket man, this, and then guess what? He comes all the way over here. Mm-hmm. And then he ends up about here.
Right.
It's just the way he is. And by the way, if you want someone who is moral, right, to give you moral guidance. Go to your pastor, go to your priest, right? What are you doing? Like, you're sitting there going, oh, well, because this politician over here says this. They all lie. They're all lying to you, right? And we've said this over and over, he's the most transparent president in history because what he thinks, it just comes out of his mouth. There's no filter. So we should appreciate that, right? And not hammer him on these things.
That's so true. Everyone's always mad at me and they're like, you're such a Trump cultist. And it's like, I've never once said, wow, I love Trump. He inspires me to be such a good husband. It's like, I like him because he can move the ball down the field. It's exactly as you said. If you want moral guidance, go to church, go to your father or something like that.
Okay, so I want to thank our sponsor this segment, which is perfect. It's Preborn. So as we're talking about RFK being like, yeah, you should be able to kill babies. Well, Preborn actually believes the opposite, and they are caring for not just babies, but also their mothers. They have a network of clinics that offer, of course, support to pregnant women who they're scared, they're alone. They've been told by the left that they just can't do it by themselves and that they should just abort the baby. It's just a clump of cells. They won't regret a thing. And we all know that that is not true. So when a distressed mother comes to Preborn, they actually give her a free ultrasound to see and hear the life inside of her. And the majority of the time, once that happens, she's going to choose life for her baby. So this Mother's Day, it's around the corner. You can help bring life to both a mother in need and an at-risk baby. One ultrasound is only $28. 5 ultrasounds are $140. And if you're a business owner, maybe you can consider a larger donation as a write-off because we know the government isn't working on saving babies, okay? A donation of $1,000, $2,000, as much as you can give, you can do that at preborn.com/Sarah. That is preborn.com/Sarah. So last week, a Florida sheriff's deputy fatally shot Roger Fortson. He was a 23-year-old senior airman in the Air Force, and this was just a totally tragic incident. They apparently mistakenly knocked on the wrong door while investigating a domestic violence complaint. And yesterday, they released body camera footage of the incident, revealing Fortson, with a handgun in his apartment as they opened the door. But here's the problem. The handgun was pointed down, and apparently one of the witnesses who was on the phone with him says that he heard knocking. He couldn't see who was out the peephole. He was looking in the peephole, which, by the way, is confirmed by body camera footage of them knocking on the door and then moving so that they couldn't be seen. I don't know why they would do that. And so he didn't know who it was, and someone kept knocking. So he went to get his handgun, and as he opened the door, he was shot to death. And it was the wrong house. Should have never happened. And I think so often as conservatives, we talk about backing the blue, and I think that it's important that you do, but I think in doing so, that means that you have to call out bad policing when it exists, and there is no reason for them to have done there were so many mistakes made. I don't even know where to begin. You didn't even go to the right place. So this man is now dead because of bad policing. And I think that it's important that we share this story and share the significance. I don't know if either of you have a different opinion.
No, I mean, I think that it's an absolute tragedy. But what I will say is, and this has been consistent all throughout the accusations of police brutality, is there is a process. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the time, the process does its job. We have a court system. They're going to look at this, and then, depending on what punishment comes down the line, then you can complain about any kind of prejudice or whatever, within the system. Because a lot of people immediately say, oh, there's a prejudice in the system. I mean, on the face of it, it's completely wrong and tragic. And these guys, whoever it is, will probably, more than likely be found guilty of homicide, at least. I mean, it's just that guy did every single thing that he should be able to do. Someone's knocking on your door.
You don't know who it is. They're banging on your door. You're supposed to just open it with no protection. Of course, I would want a weapon.
And everybody knows, criminals will move out the way Right? So you can't see who's there. He did everything right. It's horrendous. The family, I mean, it's so heartbreaking to me. And like you said, investigating. They couldn't even go to the right, I'm not going to swear, door.
Right. And it's not like they opened the door and he was going, I'm going to shoot you. He had it pointed down and he was opening the door and he didn't know who it was. John?
I just saw the video for the first time this morning, so I haven't looked into the story too much, but I remember the apartment number was given to him by a pedestrian.
Yes.
Did she give him the correct number? Was it, like, when he got to the door, was that the problem, is that was the apartment according to her, but it was not the apartment where the dispute was taking place?
I don't even know.
Did the officer make that mistake? Because on it, like, I recall a video, it's very famous, of a guy, I think it was in a Las Vegas hotel or something, and he's in the hallway, and I think he was being swatted or something, and they had like police with ARs, and they were pointing at him, and they were like, stay down, don't move, and they ended up just murdering him.
He was literally following their instructions, and they murdered him anyway.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Cases like that, I really abhor, and I want those police to be charged with murder, but cases like this, depending on what information he was given by the woman, I mean, I understand it's a horrible and tragic event, but if you're an officer responding to a domestic dispute case and you go to an apartment, like, and then you open the door and in your mind, this is the apartment where that's taking place and this has been happening all the time and it escalates, and then the first thing you see is a gun, like, that's a tough position to be in. And so while I do agree that this was tragic and wrong, and I look forward to the justice system doing its job, I also understand that instances like this are going to be used as, see, this is what we're talking about, black men being killed by police for no reason, because like one time it happens where this was a horrible mistake, but then they think Freddie Gray, he didn't die, Michael Brown, Trayvon, like all these other cases, and this is going to be used to just justify and vindicate all of that when it's not the case.
And I don't disagree with you. I wish that they didn't use that to portray a narrative that I don't believe exists, but I just feel like we still need to call this stuff out so that gets fixed, because that's a training, like, fix the training issue, right? Yeah. I mean, he was jumpy. There's no reason for you to be that jumpy. I know, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Well, Joe Biden has officially commented on whether or not he would debate Trump. Here's that. Set it up. He said, will you debate Donald Trump? He said, set it up. Now, whether or not he actually follows through with that is another thing, but how much money? I mean, I'm like, you should just charge pay-per-view. I would pay so much money to watch that. I know that they typically offer it for free, but I'm just saying.
Look, I mean, last time I remember watching it and I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. He can't talk. And then at the end of it, I was like, I don't know what they gave him.
Yeah, but that was 4 years ago.
But even then he was a disaster.
I know.
I remember watching it and you're sitting all the way through and you're like, he's gonna drop, like, what? How did he even get through that? And so now, I mean, yeah, it's a lot worse, but I would love to know what they give him.
Yeah, that's why the vaccines that they gave us were like so bad. All their real like medical researchers going into forming some concoction of uppers to give to Joe Biden.